Welcome to the Unsidelined Life, the podcast that challenges and encourages women to stop denying themselves a full life and to step boldly into the opportunities God is preparing for you. Join me for raw insights and engaging conversations to guide your journey of self-discovery and pursue the life that God created for you. Welcome to the Unsidelined Life. This is Eileen Noyes, your host. Last week, I talked about that summer shift, and I talked about transition. I talked about the shift of kids. Well, I talked about like the all the end of the year projects, the banquets, like the basketball banquets, the volleyball banquets, the last year dance, all the things. And so there's been that shift. And so in getting into that, I have my guest who is not necessarily about the kids, but the shift is more of a focus on, I believe, at least for me, the season of kind of like really entrepreneurship or really getting into like the things that I feel like God is calling me to do outside of mom and wife. But God is like pulling me back in, like, okay, back to wife, back to mom kind of stuff. So I have with me someone who I didn't know well, like a year ago at this time. And then Amber, you'll have to like fill it in. But this person has been a part of my life every week for I don't know how many months. So it's like a person who I didn't know well, and all of a sudden I'm spilling my guts week after week after week. So I wanted her to introduce herself. Amber Bryant, thank you for being on here. Thank you for all that you've vented on. And I love it because I get to shift a little bit. You always ask me the questions and I get to ask you the questions this time around. I
was just thinking of that shift. I was like, wow, Eileen's controlling the conversation today.
Control, baby.
Hi, I'm Amber Bryant, and Eileen, thank you so much for just inviting me to this time and just giving me the opportunity to chat today with you. I'm really looking forward to it. So I am a Rise Up Queens coach. So yeah, I work with women who are hoping to release control, and also those women potentially who struggle with confidence in their body or vulnerability, or stepping into just that vulnerable space that allows connection and intimacy, and allows you to be truly seen and known by your partner so that you can eventually feel truly loved.
Awesome. Okay, so you we'll backtrack a little bit to talk more about Rise of Queens, but you have a husband, obviously. What's your husband's name? And then like how many kids do you have? And then we'll go from there.
So my husband is Kyle Bryant, and we have been married for 13 years. We have 3 children, Sophia, who's 9, Charlotte, who is 6, and Kyle, the second, who is 5.
Okay. See, I knew you had kids, but I'm like, oh gosh, you're at the younger end of
I am.
Kids. Wow. Okay. So we'll have to backtrack. So we'll talk about, because you said you're a coach for Rise Up Queens. We met at Rise Up Queens at an event. I think it was last March. So we have Skylar and Jessica Lewis, who are heads of Rise Up Kings and Rise Up Queens. I'd gotten introduced actually from someone who was going to work for Skylar. She was a stay-home mom, and just how busy it was, it didn't work out. So she's applying for the job, and it didn't pan out. But for a hot second, because this girl, it's like I don't even get to talk to her anymore. But she's like, Eileen, you got to check this out. So I check out a video from Rise Up Kings. I show it to my husband. This is probably like 3 years ago. And, just what they were showing, the manly men kind of stuff, he said, I'd do that. And so for it to be a Christian kind of thing, the fact that he said that, I was like, okay, like, let's sign you up. So like I said, like 3 years ago, he signed up, his best friend signed up, but they couldn't sync their schedule to go. And so here we've been, like, he was registered for, like I said, about at least 2 years. And he finally went in March. And so he went to this. He's still completely, involved in that community. But the one thing that that he did is, I'm always the one typically asking him, hey, can we do this retreat, this, marriage stuff? And he's like,
Yeah.
hey, you want to go to Rise of Queens? And I was just all in because he was the one that had initiated it. So that's where I met you. And that's where I met, this community at Rise of Queens. And I mean, I have to say, like, this whole thing of, you talk about control. I remember when you were up and you were talking about control, I was like, oh, that's not my issue. And I literally was just like, there's no way I would ever do like one-on-one coaching because that's not my issue. Or so I thought. So fast forward, like Michael and I, and it's crazy because I typically don't talk about my marriage. I'm getting there on my show. And so I want to actually say this. This show is called The Unsidelined Life. My mindset, first of all, was the unsidelined life for me was because of my situation before and being in the world of pro sports, and the woman is sidelined, kind of came from that. There's also being sidelined because you and I, like as moms, as wives, we are always about everybody else, and we don't make time for ourselves, and we just deny ourselves, and we don't realize that there's other parts of us that God wants to use. But then there's a sideline, which I believe that this is where it's going to go. Is there sidelined lives for me because of me waiting? One, there was hurt from all the past, but for me waiting on my spouse to change, I was sidelining myself. And so that's where you had come into this picture. So, we're like just kind of going through, he's in Rise of Kings, I'm in Rise of Queens, and just the, the general communities. But as time went on, we knew we needed more. And so Jessica was the one that, she requested, hey, you need, she basically said, you need a lot of work. I mean, in our marriage. And so she connected us. And so how many coaches are there?
Right now we have 7. Okay. 7 Rise Up coaches.
Okay. So she suggested, I think she said 3. And I
when we started working together, there was 3, but we've added some. So
well, and I think that she suggested like 3. I think there's more because there was Becky, I think Christine.
Yeah. So actually at the time we started, there was 4 coaches. There was Christy, Molly, me, and Becky. And then we've added 3 more coaches. Okay. So I guess that makes 6, not 7.
Okay. Awesome. And I know that like we're going to get this to the Rise of Kings community, but yes, like, so Jessica suggested you. And so that's where it goes. I mean, we're talking 2 people like I knew you, but I didn't know you. And then all of a sudden it's literally just divulging everything to you. So how did you get to the place of coach, and how was it for you, obviously with this whole thing of control? You had for you to say, okay, I want to teach, I want to coach about this, means that you had your own stuff that you had to work through. So how did that happen?
Well, I think that honestly, it's just a blessing from God that I even get to do this. But when I was in high school, I said, I want to solve problems and help people. Like that was what I wanted to do. And my grandfather was a psychologist. So I said, you know what, I'm going to be a psychologist. And I started going to school for that for 2 years. And when I got into it, it felt scary. And honestly, it was my fear that I shifted out. And I said, you know what? I'm going to solve problems and help people that don't talk. So I'm going to become an engineer. And so I got my degree in civil engineering, and I was a civil engineer for decades, probably 2 decades. And I entered the Rise Up Queens community in a similar way. My husband went to an event. He came out of that event a totally different man. And when he came home, he had the desire to lead. He had the desire to fill his biblical role as the head of our household. And it was like an answer to a prayer. It was everything I ever wanted, because at that point in my life, I was exhausted and overwhelmed from feeling like I had to manage everything. Like
Right.
I was in control of our entire lives, and it was starting to wear on me. And all I wanted was a provider and a protector who would lead me. And so he came home as that man. And at first I was ecstatic,
Yeah.
but then I noticed I was losing control. And so that became scary. And I think I went back into control, but in an even bigger way, because I was like, I don't feel comfortable giving this up. Like, he's making decisions without me. He's taking leadership. I don't know what's about to happen. And so I saw the light in him dim. And it was at that point that I said, you know, God is answering my prayers. My husband has a desire and a conviction and an excitement about leading our household. And I'm killing that light in him with my desire to control and be in possession of, you know, it was a false narrative, but I thought if I was in control that I was controlling the direction we would be headed. And so I knew I needed to shift. And so that's what gave me the desire to just dig into everything that Rise Up Queens had to offer, reading books, studying my husband, studying the Bible, what the scripture says about control, biblical marriage. And I just started implementing shifts in my life, and I saw my marriage shift 180 degrees. And so that's how I ended up here. Jessica saw a big shift in me as a person, as a mom, as a wife. And so she asked me if I would be willing to be a Rise Up Queens coach. And I trained under her for about a year. And then, now I'm here.
Wow. So what was your hardest, because we have these talks, what was your hardest or biggest challenges in relinquishing control? And in what areas were those in?
I think the hardest areas for me to relinquish control were probably two areas. One was our children. And not that I don't have control of our children, but not showing up in a controlling way with how my husband interacted with our children. And then I think another area of my life was trusting Kyle to make decisions and lead. And that was something I didn't realize until I started relinquishing control, is that I had somehow lost trust in his decision-making ability. And so when he made a decision, I would question it and say, you know, why, what, how, who. And in my head, I was seeking information to understand. But to him, I was sending the subconscious message of, I don't trust you. I don't believe in you. You need to explain yourself before I'm willing to follow you. And that isn't allowing him to lead.
Yeah. So did you have one-on-ones like we have one-on-ones? Like, do you have one-on-ones?
Yeah, I luckily was in the coaching community that Jessica was creating. And so we all coached each other. Jessica would coach us. We would coach each other. And that was an amazing experience to have so many skilled, biblically sound women speaking into me at the same time. I was also a member of the Rise Up Queens community. I had a Rise Up Queens forum. All of these things were so helpful to me to just bring my issues, my concerns, my fears to a group of biblical women who would speak life into me and speak truth rather than, you know, allowing me to sit in that fear or validating the fear. They instead spoke life and truth into me that allowed me to say, you know what, I am succumbing to fear, which is a sin, and I don't need to do that. Like, I can trust my husband. And more than that, I can trust God to be big enough to direct my husband, correct my husband, and allow him to walk the path that God has for him.
Yeah. Wow. Like, so when I think about Rise Up Queens, I remember being there the first time around, and I was like, what's up with this femininity, fluid, graceful stuff? I was like, what is up with that? But yeah. I have come to see, oh my gosh, how needed it is and how crucial it is. And I don't remember what clicked in me, but we talked about control. I had talked about how I didn't feel like I was a controlling person, but as we talked more, I was like, oh my gosh. And maybe it was, addressed at one of the events, but the fear, at least for me, or the control had to do with the fear, right? It's like, whatever you're fearing is you're trying to control it. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, it was a realization that my controlling attempts came from where my trauma was. And so the trauma of, the lack of, just the marriage and the first time falling apart and all these things happening. And so I know I had come into this marriage. I didn't realize it was a control thing, but I just knew at some point there was this mentality that I had to really dig deep into with you, with deeper. There's another event where it's super intense. And so the Rise Up Queens, we know that yeah, super intense. But there was just something that clicked that made me realize, oh my gosh, I'm trying to control this. And also see that I had this feeling of, you know what, my husband is going to walk away, or he's not going to be there for me, just like the one before. But it really stemmed from a root of me having this, oh gosh, like a subconscious belief that the men that I've turned to, the men that I've relied on, they somehow have betrayed me. It's just this lie that rooted from some relationship, and I know which ones, but it was just like a general blanket thing where I came into this marriage, and I remember at the marriage conference, Elevate, that I was like, oh yeah, I said, I've come to realize I put no stock into this marriage. How hard was that for my husband to hear me saying that in front of everybody? And it had nothing really to do with him. I mean, it was just taking, all the junk that I had not dealt with, that I had not healed through, and then taking just one little circumstance that happened between us where it's like, I don't know, we've talked about it. I think it was just a situation where I just got this feeling, oh yeah, he's not going to take care of me. I got to take care of myself, and I got to take care of my kids. And so it just kind of came from that. So you have been, like I said, the one. I can't imagine how hard it is to be as a coach, week after week hearing this stuff. And, I wasn't, I mean, I'm a nice person. I'm not going to shout at you or anything, but there were times when I was crying and I'm like, this is stupid. I'm so sick of being over responsible for this relationship. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
It's over responsibility.
Yeah. And honestly, I could feel your anger, and I could feel the frustration in your tears and the hopelessness. But the reason that I love doing this is because I was there. I was the hopeless person, crying, seeing no way out, just resigning myself to the fact that I was going to be unhappy in marriage for life. And then I wasn't. I learned a different way. I learned that releasing control and femininity are not weakness. It has empowered me in a way that has given me freedom. It has given me joy. It has given me peace. And I now have time in my life to fill my cup and do things that make me happy. And I want to share that with other women. And so when I work with women like you that are crying and hopeless, I know there's a way out of that. And it just gives me the desire and the persistence to keep going. And so some weeks we would be on a call and I would be like, we did not break through. I don't think Eileen walked away with a message. But then the next week, you're softened, you're opened, and, just that persistence of you committing to coming back week after week, is what allowed that shift and your openness. And yes, throughout the process, you may feel resistance, but your openness and willingness to continue to show up is what allowed for that shift and that change in your life. And it is so fulfilling as a coach to see that materialize and to see your joy and to see your freedom. So I feel blessed to have this as part of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good. So it's worth it is what you're saying.
Yes, it is definitely worth it.
Yeah. Cause I just, well, it's so funny because, I know that, you'll give me assignments, and there are certain things where it's like, there's vulnerability pieces. There's ways on how we communicate with our spouse. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, this is such textbook. Like, I would do it, and his responses would be exactly what you said they would be. And I was like, wow, this is so weird because of, it's society. I know for me, it's what I went through, but it's society, it's culture that can sometimes say, you have to be the strong, independent woman. And, I'd say, but the Black culture and what I've seen, and mm-hmm. I'm not Black, but I'm around that, and just that whole thing of like, no, I am not going to take anyone's crap anymore. It caused me to show up from the contrast, the contrast, the first marriage, I was wanting to be submissive and wanted to be submissive wife. And not that I didn't want to the second time around, but because of my wounds, they were so deep that I know that the second time around, I came in like, I am not taking anybody's junk, and I have a voice. And God had to talk me through it to say, you know what, Eileen, you still have a voice, but that gentle, quiet spirit is still precious in my sight, and use it now for strategy. So much of this is like strategic. It's not being lessened. It's not being walked on. It is literally just going, hey, I have a technique that is going to work. That's going to get you what you want. Like, why wouldn't you do it? And it's definitely, it's scary, because you guys talk about being vulnerable and coming with your feelings. And I can say there's been so many weeks where, you'll tell me, to start with feelings, tell them how you feel, or don't ask those baiting questions. And it's just like, I'm not like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know. There was just so many times where I was just so frustrated, but there was, I think it happened at Deeper. There was a shift that had a lot to do with me relinquishing, actually not relinquishing, because I wasn't even trying to hold on to it. I didn't know I was holding on to it, but I never allowed myself to get angry the first time around. And so, like when I was going through my hardest time, it was, nope, I'm going to obey you, God. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to pray for my enemy. I'm going to, or my enemies, I'm going to pray for my ex. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to choose joy. So I did all those things, but I never allowed myself to be angry for what had actually happened. And so in that event, that was really where I cried that, the angry tears. And it was 2 days, probably. It was like a barrel of tears that just needed to be let out. And after it was done, it wasn't like I felt sad. It was just like this release, like, oh, okay. Like I just needed to let that out, And so then from there, I just felt like things started clicking even more, that all the things that you were telling me, I felt like there was this weight lifted, that I'm just going to do this without this fear of like what I'm going to get in return. And I realized too, which is a big thing for me now, is seeing how things don't get to me. And if they don't get to me as much, it's not like, so there's, like I said, so there's the Deeper for the women and there's the Forge for the men. My husband has not gone to Forge yet, but for me, I see that, and you guys talk about this a lot, as I have just focused on me and have been working on me, it totally has shown a difference in him. So that like we can trust God when he says, hey, the gentle, quiet spirit, your behavior, your godly behavior will impact him greatly. Where I feel like he's literally has said that, like, he's like, I see a difference in you. And it's really like causing me to change. So I feel like our marriage has, it's like It's completely different than what you had started with,
Yes,
seeing.
it
So
is. And surrender and femininity have such a bad rap in modern society. But you said earlier, like, you have a system. And I just want to say, like, it isn't even my system. Like, the Lord tells us how to live. And have we developed a way to teach that in a coachable, implementable, easy to follow methods? Yes, but it isn't our method. This is literally us living out what God calls us to do as wives, as mothers, as women. And when you can submit to that, it has given me way more power and freedom than I ever did when I was trying to control. And one of the biggest things that I've realized is I have no control over how my husband shows up, how he responds, how he acts. I can try to manipulate that. And I did. I did try to manipulate that, but I don't have any control of him. The only thing I have control of is myself. And that goes for my children as well. I can coach them, I can lead them, I can teach them, but I don't have control of how they're going to respond and react. But I can try. I have influence, but I don't have control. And so just knowing that the only thing I have control of is how I show up, and seeing how when I shifted, how I showed up, it changed the dynamic in my entire family. It changed my relationship with my husband, with my children, and eventually with my friends. And I think that that is just an amazing testament to God's design.
have you ever felt like you're living in the shadows, watching life pass you by? Maybe you're drowning in the day-to-day, wondering if there's more to your story. I'm Eileen Noyes, and I'm here to tell you that it's time to step into the light. As women, we often put our dreams on hold, but here's the truth. You were created for a purpose, for greater than you can imagine. God didn't design you to blend into the background. He made you to stand out and make a difference. That's the heart behind my book, Rise Up Lady Bellator. It's a rallying cry for every woman ready to break free from the shadows and embrace her God-given calling. In Rise Up Lady Bellator, you'll learn how to uncover your unique strengths and talents, break through the barriers holding you back, and step confidently into your place of purpose. Ladies, it's time to armor up and answer the call. Your battle cry awaits in the pages of Rise Up Lady Bellator. Get your copy today at ladybellator.com/books. That's LADYBELLATOR.com/books. Remember, you're not just any warrior, you're a Lady Bellator. Rise up and claim your purpose. How did you see your husband show up differently? Did you go to Deeper first, or did he go to Forge?
No, I went to Deeper first.
Okay.
Yeah, my path was very similar to yours. We did.
That's what I was going to talk about.
did. He went to Ruck, then I went to the Rise Up Queens event, and then I went to Deeper. We went to the Marriage Elevate, and then he went to Forge after Elevate.
Okay. So you did it. Yeah. See. Okay. So again, like all Rise Up Kings and Queens community will know what we're talking about. But yeah. So you have the initial event, and then you have the one that goes deeper individually, and then you have the marriage one. So the way that it is kind of encouraged from typically what it is like, you were supposed to go individually, and then you go to the marriage one, right? And so when we had talked to Skylar and Jessica, and just being real, like, we were at a really crazy place in our relationship, and we couldn't go to the individual ones first. And so we did go to Elevate first. And I know that when we went there, like, in my mind, I kept thinking, okay, we're getting these tools, but if we're still little wounded kids, the tools can only take us so far. And so then again, I was waiting, like, I'm like, okay, here it goes. His Forge is coming up. My Deeper is coming up. He couldn't go to the Forge. And so this whole thing of just feeling, this is before my shifts, just feeling this helplessness, like, our marriage is going to be stuck until he goes to his retreat. And so when when he couldn't go, and it was circumstantial, it's not like he didn't want to go. When I went to mine and when I got my healing, I know for me, I don't know how it is for you, because I love, and that's what I wanted to talk about, is like our stories, just so many parallels, and there's so many things. It's like, I knew, you can totally see why God put us together. But like, I felt like after I went through the whole thing, like God was saying, Eileen, you were always intended to go first. It's like he wanted to show me you aren't sidelined because of him. You're being sidelined because of you. And the last time we had talked, there was a time where like you told me, it was like so hard to hear, like super humbling, but you're like, yeah, for months and months, Eileen, you were in victim mode. And now I see a shift. And that's hard to hear, because it's like, when you think that you're like a tough, I think I'm pretty tough. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, what? But the reality was that's what I was doing, and that's what God was showing me. And so going to deeper and working on me, I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, I am seeing that in our specific situation, you have designed that I am to go first, not just for me, but for my kids, for my husband, that like he wanted to show me like the power of helper, and the helper doesn't come in the form of this. It comes in the form of, like my actions and my trusting in the Lord, and my healing is speaking, volumes, that's creating ripple effect change in my home. So, but yeah, I drew a blank because I was thinking of how many times I wanted to quit, and I was like, she's not going to understand me. Amber's not going to understand. And then I would say something, and you always, you validated how I felt, you acknowledged it, but you always had, like a story of you and Kyle and how you got through it. And so I'm saying that to say that like God gives, we talked about this whole coaching space, how God gives us all different gifts. He's given us different, like trials and experiences in life that you can help someone else. And so like we were meant to be together. And so just that whole thing, like when we were talking about yesterday, it's like, when you're coming into a space and you don't connect what you're trying to do with God's specific purpose for your life, it can feel discouraging. It can feel like you're competing, so just talking to that, like we had talked about it yesterday, but I would love to hear from you in that coaching space.
First, I just want to say like that victim mentality can be so paralyzing, because if you're sitting there thinking he needs to change for my life to get better, we just talked about, you have no control of when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen. But what you do have is control of yourself. And that's the one form of control that God asks us to do, self-control. It's right there in the fruits of the Spirit. And so when you shifted and started making changes in your life, and I love God's design and his timing and how he, allowed you to go to that event first and Michael not, so that you could see that lived out. You could see that your shifts created shifts for your whole family. And that gave you a sense of grace for Michael. Like, hey, he isn't the problem. Like, we co-created this environment and this relationship, and my shifts have created shifts for both of us and are giving space for him to show up differently. So I just think that's such a gift for you to have that knowledge and that experience, so that when Michael does go to Forge and he does his healing and growth, like it's going to be an impact to your marriage, and you'll see how his shifts allow you to step into new and different spaces. So I think that's amazing. And then also what was your question? The other question?
My question was like in the coaching space, we talked about how we specifically were connected, God ordains that. So just speaking of coaching, how that shifted for you of like coming into this, because I wanted to talk about this just as women are coming into, just the areas of that nudge, like that God is calling you to different purpose or an additional purpose outside of mom and wife. It's like, for me, that's a space of, it could be discouraging. It could be like deflating, where you're like, God, I don't know what you want me to do. Or, like, I'm seeing this person do this. There's that comparison game, and there's the thing, but when you know your purpose, there's a rest in that. So I want you to speak into that as a coach.
Yes, for sure. If you would have asked me, oh, are you ever going to become a coach in life? Like, at any phase prior to this, I probably would have been like, no, what is that? But I feel so blessed that God gave me this. Because like I told you before, like, he put a desire in me to solve problems and help people at a very young age. Like, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And when this opportunity opened up to me, I was like, yes, God blessed me with the skill set to do this, like with the empathy, with the logic, with the ability to hear what's underneath what people are seeing. And this allows me to use all of those giftings to help people and solve problems in a way that is meaningful and honoring to the Lord. And that has given me so much purpose and so much fulfillment. And like you said, a peace and a rest. Like, we have multiple Rise Up Queens coaches, and people have asked me, oh man, so-and-so got 5 clients from this event, and so-and-so did this. Like, are you upset that you just got the one, or that nobody signed up to coach with you this event? And I'm like, no. And I used to be a very competitive person. I wanted the straight A's and the good job and, high performance type thing. But when it comes to coaching and me following my purpose that I feel like God has given me, I don't have a comparative or competitive bone in my body. I'm like, hey, God is taking the women who need each one of these coaches and directing them in that direction. And if this isn't the season that a woman needs me, I feel at peace with that, because I know that the people who need me will be driven to me. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Fit is such a big thing. And I think, like, you just said something that encouraged me, just because there's just those places of uncertainty. But you have been called specifically for certain things, and your zeal, the whole thing of, because of your experience with control, and because of yourself, your own trials and struggles with like body image and things like that, it's going to come through in passion and compassion and insight to the different women. So yeah, so it was encouraging for me, because I'm like, there are times where I'm just like thinking, like, God, like, what, where am I going with this? But there's also something that I feel like God has really been talking to me about, and you just did it, is there's the power, and it's almost like, I feel like it's the test from God, like in those quiet places where it's quiet for me right now. Are you going to celebrate with other people's victories? Are you going to, help people even if there's nothing in return for you? Like, those are the things I feel like God's like kind of like highlighting to me. Like, are you going to be that person? Because when I celebrate other people, and there's always been that, there's been tests in different ways. It's like it's the consistent test of, Eileen, are you going to be content where I have you right now? And are you going to celebrate others with where they're going? And so it's like, okay, I'll do that again, Lord. And I know, and I trust that you're working in my quiet, because it's a quiet in a weird way. It's a quiet of like quiet in terms of what that purpose is that I know that he's called me to. There's a quiet in that there's not like, much, I don't want to say movement, but it's behind the scenes. It's literally, not in my view, but it doesn't mean that God's not working. And there's also, again, it's this, hey, Eileen, kids are going to be home. Your husband needs you more because he's working. And so to be able to just go, I surrender what you called me to. I surrender my dreams. I surrender. I've laid at your feet, and I'm just going to be whoever or whatever you want to be right now and celebrate other people. I just feel like that's a big thing that he's just doing in me right now. But I don't know. It doesn't necessarily pertain to you, but it's what you're just saying is, just being able to celebrate with others and not feel less than because someone else is getting something. So yeah, I just wanted to, say that. But is there something else that you, I'm trying to keep my podcast a little bit shorter these days. So is there anything that you want to share? Like in this moment right now?
Well, one, I just want to say how beautiful of a transition that I have seen in your life. Like you stepping into that vulnerability and that release of fear has been an amazing and beautiful transition to watch. And I can see and hear the lightness in you that wasn't there in the beginning of our coaching relationship. And so, I just wanted to thank you so much for this opportunity. And also just for all the women out there who are feeling resistance, who are feeling resentment, bitterness, overwhelmed with their life because they're trying to manage it all. That doesn't have to be the way you live life. There can be shifts and freedom in just leaning in to surrender in a biblical way. And that doesn't mean that you have to become a doormat and that you don't get to have a voice. Like we coach through teaching women to vulnerably express their needs and wants in an effective communication that allows your husband to hear you so that you can walk together in partnership, because that is what God intended for marriage.
Yeah. So good. I love you guys. I would, audience, if you have not heard of Rise Up Queens or Rise Up Kings, I encourage you to check it out. It has been completely life-changing. And like you, Amber, I know that there was a point in my life where I just thought, oh man, here I go. I am going into a second marriage where it's just going to be just kind of doing my own thing and he's going to be doing his own thing. And to not only feel for myself that, one, God was always right. He told me, I'm putting you together. I have a story to tell with you. You press into me. Me doing that and realizing, okay, Lord, you do know what you're talking about. And thank you that this is, my husband is a gift to me and I'm a gift to my husband. There's that. But for him to see, to have that place of saying, Eileen, since you've been back, he's like, your behavior is impacting me. And I love that that I'm looking in the future, seeing that we have companionship. We did not have that before. So much is a testament just to you, to all that Skylar and Jessica are doing. So I just appreciate it. And so thank you for this time. It's nice to, I feel that there's definitely been the shift. So I don't even know how many months of it was like week after week of intensity and hard times. And then like the shift of going, okay, I don't have anything major to say or major complaint. It's been nice to, get on that footing with you. So
yeah, we're no longer in triage. We're like in growth. And that's such an amazing shift to make. We're not dealing with trauma. We're not anymore. Like we've overcome the pain, the trauma that we've dealt with that. And now we get to focus on you as a woman and just growth and maturity in the things that speak to you right now. And that's also an amazing place to be.
Awesome. Well, yes, it is. It is definitely a nice shift. It's a whole lot or just light. So as we close, I would love for people to get to connect with you. So can you explain how they can go about doing that?
So there's two ways to do that. One would be to attend a Rise Up Queens event, and Jessica Lewis, myself, and the other coaches will all be there. Or the other way is you can schedule a discovery call with me to see if coaching with me is a good fit. And so I'm going to give you a link, and I think you'll be able to just click that in bio of this podcast.
Okay. Well, thank you, audience, for listening. I know that a lot of our Rise Up Queens community is going to be on this listening. And so definitely any one-on-ones, I just think it just takes what we learned in, at the different events to a whole other level. And so I encourage you, want to check out Amber and all the rest of the coaches. God will give you that perfect fit. But again, Amber, thank you so much. And as we hit into the summer, have a good summer. And so, yeah, we're on a 2-week, we're every 2 weeks that we talk now. That's what we're on right now. So, okay. All right, Amber, thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye. Until next time, love well, celebrate your strength, and discover the new things you are capable of. You are a light in the lives of those around you, and no night is too dark for you to find your way.